because, of course, there's a tradition that French were very much leading in the military domain. Okay, there will be a need to find a new balance here. Certainly, there's a lot of work to do from the French side. I think Germany is also learning its new role, and I think it's my view as a French in the fact that Germany is considering quite in the right way the fact to become a leader in this domain. France has to learn that there could be another leader.
Hey SpaceWatchers, and welcome to our series of reviews of 2025. And I have the great pleasure now to sit together in Munich during the EU ISO's conference with Xavier, Pasco, the director of the French FRS. And I leave you to explain this abbreviation to our audience in a moment, because my French is very bad. But Xavier, welcome to SpaceWatch.Global. How are you doing today?
Fine, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
Very
so
good.
what stands FRS for?
So SRS stands for Fondation pour la Recherche Stratégique, Foundation for Strategic Research. Basically, we're a research center and a think tank, and we're working on international security and defense issues related to technology and strategic domains. It's very wide, and space is one of our preferred domain of study, I would say.
We would like to hear your thoughts about the 2025 year and an outlook for 2026. Let's start from 25 as a European turning point. So from a European strategic perspective, was 2025 a turning point for military space policy?
Yeah, I feel like it's really a turning year for European space as a whole, I would say, for military, that's for sure. But more widely than that, I think space has been taken seriously. I think Europe, for once, has really realized that space was a strategic domain in which it had to invest a lot. And I think the latest ESA ministerial conference has really demonstrated the fact that member states were very much aware of the need to invest in a domain where the United States and China are really putting a lot of efforts. And indeed, I feel like because also of the general situation, geopolitically speaking, Europe has really decided to look seriously into what it could bring militarily speaking and about the importance to invest in military space. The devil is in the details. We will have to see how this will fold out, but still, the intent is there. I think the member states, and notably Germany, has been very much impressive in terms of political decisions recently made. And again, France has invested for a while in this. It was very much in relation also with the deterrence force and all the things. France has always had this goalist kind of view, but it's clear now that France is not the sole leader of this, and Germany and some other countries are making a lot of effort. So I think it's been
Besides the money, is there anything else what made this shift visible?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have a number of efforts, whether it's about ESA, whether it's about the European Commission, and they really focus on what's called dual technology related programs, which means that programs that can use in the civilian domain, but also can be useful for the military. I think this is very clear that space is in the middle of all that. The fact that space and digital technologies have merged more and more makes space quite unavoidable in terms of information control. The information chain is really using more and more space networks now, and it will be as useful as for civilian users as for military users. So I think this thing has been expressed very clearly. It has been expressed at the ESA level, it has been expressed at the Commission level. The European Defence Fund, for example, and some recent frameworks, I would say, are very much demonstrating this.
Let's talk about France and Germany in space defense. So how would you describe the state of the Franco-German relationship in military space after 2025?
I think I would describe it both by an intense relation, an intense mutual interest, but also a very strong relationship in terms of better understanding each other. I think clearly that the Franco-German or German-French engine has always been important for Europe, for the rest of Europe. Clearly, Germany has decided to be more invested in this. That's for sure. France, of course, is looking at this with both a bit of interest and much interest on the difficulty, by the way, budgetary difficulties in France and all that. Anybody's in France convinced that there need to be a critical European mass, that's for sure, and Germany will be the main contributor to this. And at the same time, France is looking at it with a bit of a disturbance, let's say, because, of course, there's a tradition that French were very much leading in the military domain. Okay, there will be a need to find a new balance here. Certainly, there's a lot of work to do from the French side. it. I think Germany is also learning its new role. And I think it's my view as a French in the fact that Germany is considering quite in the right way the fact to become a leader in this domain. France has to learn that there could be another leader. So it's difficult. A number of programs have been shaken, let's say, recently. Non-space program, it can be the FCAS, for example, these kind of things. Industry has to learn to live together more. And that's an interesting perspective for reshuffling the whole thing.
That's my follow-up here. So is it driven more cooperation or by parallel national path?
We're at the crossroads. That's the point. That's really the critical point. I think if you look at the latest national space strategy in France, for example, it's been repeated over and over that cooperation is the key. And clearly the French, as far as I know, the French political personnel is convinced that there's no other way than cooperating with Germany. At the same time, indeed, there's this issue that industry must be adapted to this. So the issue might be the tempo. And I think we'll have to consider this. The tempo can be very quick. The German decisions have been announced in a row, in a sequence like this. The French didn't have the habit at all of having this such proposal and such new, I would say, perspectives. Let's say, I think we must give a bit of time. We're running out of time, that's for sure. Yeah. But I think the French will be eager to adapt, and they will have to adapt anyway.
Thanks as you bringing up the strategies, because my question is the strategies versus capabilities. Which country, Germany and France, both brought up their new German space security strategy. France, it was an adaptation or an update. Which country is closer to turning strategy into military capability?
I would say both are quite equal for different reasons. France have capabilities already. They've been built for years already. They are a bit transformed. What we know, and it's not a secret, is that the money is not there. So there's the problem of budget. On the other hand, Germany announced this incredible 35 billion euros invested by 2030 in military space. My point is that, and anybody knows that you have to absorb this, and as far as industry is concerned, which is not easy in 5 terms. So my belief is that paradoxically here, where some people could see some sort of tearing apart of strategies, the German one on the one hand and the French one on the other hand, there might be some sort of midway here where some of the German money could also capitalize on things that have been already developed and could add some capabilities to existing capabilities and existing expertise, and then keep, of course, the rest of the money for building, I would say, more in the more long-term vision, the roadmap itself, without opposing the two. And I think this is where I'm very much optimistic in this respect, by the way, because I feel like the pragmatism in the end will appear, will emerge, where the French and the German will understand they have common interest in doing some short-term things that you can do.
Sometimes I have the feeling that everyone else is seeing it in Germany, in France, except our friends on the military side. I know that there are personal relationships on the teams, that is not the issue, but on general or on the leadership side, and there's still a heavy national focus, I would say.
Absolutely. This, I would say that's with the think tanks to explain that that's the wrong way. And that in fact, Europe has all the assets.
Yeah.
We have already developed some expertise in the military domain, and the German will also learn in this. And so we can, with at the same time respecting the national interest, we can group things, we can group some elements that will deliver very short-term results, because the real risk for Europe is that this national antagonism could lead to deferred decisions, to longer term programs, etc., and you don't answer the specific questions right now. So I think we can balance this, but you're right. The most difficult thing, and we try at FRS level, I did a chapter in the German book recently that will be published in some weeks from now, I think, explaining that this was not a zero-sum game. And there might be some win-win situations here. The political person has to be convinced of that, so they have to be, I would say, guided into maybe less simplistic answers.
It's a political leadership, aware and be ready now. We have seen previous German leadership that didn't go that well together with France. Now we have Merz and Macron.
That's true, but
it looks quite good. We just finished the talks in Berlin again on the Ukraine side, and it looks that they're standing very strong together. Germany, France, also with the UK, with Italy, when it comes towards Ukraine.
I totally agree with you. I think the defiance kind of relationship they had some years ago is still not easy. But I think the geopolitical scene environment has reminded anybody that you'd better off being together rather than separated.
You mean
So I
the
think,
threat from the outside has to
yeah,
be bigger?
that's for sure, of course. And anybody realized that Europe has all the assets, but it's not organized to use them. So I think I'm very hopeful that the French-German relationship will be based on pragmatism and also with a mutual consideration.
Let's talk for a moment about the budget and the political signals. With that, Germany announced the 35 billion you mentioned for space defense, and ESA now has its 22.3 billion budget. We just heard it. Germany's 5.4 billion. So all very big numbers. Does these numbers change the political balance in European military space?
I feel like for sure that the global European space industry balance will be a change, will be transformed. Traditionally, France had the most powerful industry. It remains very strong. You've heard also of the industrial alliance between Thales, Airbus, and Leonardo, for example. This is the result of a calculation that you need to group together to be stronger in front of all the big industry elsewhere. I think Germany is becoming a real heavy industrial player. So the center of gravity of space industry activity goes towards Germany more than before. So we're in between Toulouse and Munich, I would say today. And that's good.
You're talking to a Berliner.
So on Berlin, okay. I wouldn't mean that.
Just to be clear,
we're in Bayern. That's it. But I mentioned Toulouse, not Paris. But okay, you're right. But no, I think it's just for fun. Really, I think it's a good thing because I think the more you have cross joint ventures and cooperative agreements between industry makes Europe stronger, and that's very important.
Let's bring it to a European level, the European coherence. So is Europe today capable of acting coherently in military space or still structurally fragmented? We see with the ERS now, the European Resilience from Space.
That's true.
ESA is also going into this field, but it's still a federated approach, because my first question with ERS was always then the C2 question, command and control.
Absolutely. I think, okay, it's a first step, let's say, but we don't have to dissimulate the fact that military defense policies remain really in the hands of member states. And in addition to this, ESA by itself is not designed to deal with these aspects, and it would, okay, so the current director of ESA is trying to push, some of these predecessors tried to do that already for space surveillance, for example, that is bolder in this, really wants to create some more defense-oriented capabilities, let's say. I think this is something we have to consider with a bit of caution. I think it's a good sign. There will be a long way before we have a coherent European defense policy in space. By the way, I recall that we don't have a European Union Ministry of Defense, for example, and it's not by chance. But still, that's a good thing to have these first steps because it means that we begin to think collectively to these things. So the difficulty will be the balance between member states on the one hand and the global European community, and let's say society on the other hand. Space can help. I think we have to find the sweet spot about investing in which programs that can help member states without substituting to hardcore missions, etc. But I think it's doable.
Okay. No, it sounds good. It sounds very promising. But when we look ahead into 2026, what will be the size of test for European military space cooperation?
I think we have heard about, for example, Franco-German possibility of cooperating in the early warning domain, for example. That's an interesting thing. We know that we have the technologies.
So that's Odin's Eye?
Dual and this kind of things. And more you have this notion that we could have some satellites devoted to this mission. That today Europe and France neither has the capability to have this early warning domain. Okay, we want to invest in that. We know we can do it technologically. We know it's certainly smart to invest cooperatively in this and multiply the number of satellites in space devoted to this mission. We know that this mission is important because of Ukraine. And the difficulty will certainly be on the French side to connect this with the deterrent force. It's always difficult, but it is an interesting perspective that we talk about it, that there are funds to develop this, that the industry is putting itself, I would say, together and gathering its strengths to do that cooperatively. Okay, we've not yet reached the end program, let's say, but it's promising new steps. So this might be a good 2026 step to take.
As I'm a German and sometimes have some pessimistic views on it, so what would be a failure look like if we don't make it working together?
I think one scenario that could induce some sort of pessimism would be that Europe is torn apart on the several subjects. On the launcher subject, for example, there certainly might be some sort of situation when you have a win-win situation for having both the Ariane and the new launchers, etc. It would be difficult to see, and certainly a sign of failure, to see the industry dragged by the US firm, for example, things like that. And you wouldn't have a cohesive European industrial tissue, for example. That would be a real difficulty. And if you look at this Golden Dome kind of thing, you might have some attractivity for a number of European firms to go and work.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we don't have to work with the US, but we have to make sure that we do the good priority, we hierarchize things. And I think the first priority for European firms, whether they're French, Italian, German, etc., is really to make sure that they can build together a very strong European tissue.
Absolutely. Xavier, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And if you have further questions, reach out to us at radio@SpaceWatch.Global. If you like these or other episodes of Space Café Radio, leave us a rating on your preferred podcast platform. It is the currency of today. And if you want to stay on the pulse of the space industry, please visit our website at www.SpaceWatch.Global and subscribe to our newsletters. And of course, don't forget to become a Space Watcher. I'm Thorsten Kriening, publisher at SpaceWatch.Global, your independent perspective on space.